Good morning, welcome to the video. We've got a very special day today. National champs in the house, and I want to share with you what it takes to be a national champ. What does it take to be the #1 at anything in life? How much work does it take to be the best in your field, in the world or in the nation? You guys always talk about, like, what does it take to become a Raider? What does it take to become Recon Marine? What does it take to be a Green Beret? Because not everybody can do it. And you know, you guys ask, like, what's the tips, hacks, tricks, shortcuts? How can I do it? I don't think there are any. So we're gonna talk to this guy about what does it take to become the national champion of wrestling. The #1 dude.
Wrestling, Mark Ellis, nationally ranked wrestler out of Missouri. Ellis takes a shot and a re-shot for Rochelle and a takedown for Ellis. Mark Ellis wins the bout.
My dream was to be the best at whatever I did. So my dream was to be a national champion once I decided wrestling was what I wanted to do.
Champion Mark Ellis of Missouri will be red. His opponent, Mitchell Hunt.
Even leading up to the national tournament, you got a stadium packed of loud noises, and I'm the last match of the tournament at heavyweight, and the place is loud, and I'm nervous, and all the voices are coming in my head of why it's okay to lose. You don't have to. You've made it this far. Second place is good enough. So I remember being back underneath the seats and in the arena, and just telling myself, national champion, you can do this, you can win this, and all these thoughts of self-doubt came in. And I remember running out on the stage on ESPN in front of lots of people, and I remember once I ran up the stairs on the stage, it just came to me, you're not losing this match, you're not going to go off this stage a loser. And it was surreal at that moment. Then I got a call from Zinkin Entertainment to come fight with the best agency in all of mixed martial arts. And I was in the MMA game, I was in the MMA world. It took me a long time to get my first fight. I was fighting with the best fighters in the world.
He's gonna get this choke without.
He's got it in.
Oh, he's got it in tight. This is a crazy one.
It wasn't
locked up, you know, hand and arm, but now he's got the rear naked choke.
it just could not fend off the beast that is 6'3", 244-pound Mark Ellis. I mean, Mark Ellis is the Big Island when you talk about size of human.
What's up, everybody? And this is a pretty special day. We've got Mark Ellis here, who happens to be Miss Capper's cousin.
That's right.
So I want to know, one, like, let's give some dirt on Miss Capper as a kid before we start.
Miss Capra as a kid. Well, Miss Capra, so it's not really dirt, but Miss Capra was, I mean, basically part of the family. It was more like a sister growing up. So I have 2 other sisters. I'm the middle of 2 girls, and so we just basically threw another girl in there. So it was me in the middle of 3 girls, getting picked on for a little while, and then finally I got old enough and could fight back a little bit. But that's kind of
you against 3 girls.
Yeah, that's kind of how it was.
So is that how you became the national champ in wrestling?
Fighting 3 girls.
Fighting 3 girls.
My life, yeah.
So for those on the channel that don't know, you were the 2009 national champ in the NCAA wrestling, right?
That's right. Yeah. No. So I won a national title at the University of Missouri in 2009, and you know, it didn't start off that way. I was a messed up kid who faced a lot of adversity, tried to quit multiple times, and just man, super grateful for the people that God put in my life, and just the coaches and the people that were there to encourage me, and really I call them really anything in life. I think there's life givers and life takers, and so grateful that I was surrounded by a bunch of life givers and that believed in me and
yeah,
helped me stick with it and ultimately win a national title.
So how old were you in 2009 when you won that?
Maybe, you know, what was 21, 22.
Okay, and when did you start wrestling?
6. 5 or 6 years old. That's right. Yeah.
So how many years is that wrestling?
That's my whole life. Yeah. So
okay.
A lot of years.
So at 6 years old, you didn't wake up and walk into the ring and was the best.
No.
You know what I mean? Like, were you? Were you born the best wrestler in the nation?
I was a little fat kid who got beat up a lot, and again tried to quit multiple times, and actually Miss Capra's brother. The Capras were really what drugged me into wrestling. So it was her brother and my uncle, her dad.
Which Neil's been on the channel. Okay,
Neil, yeah.
And he's a handful.
Yeah. So Neil, definitely a handful, but I wanted to be like Neil growing up. So it was Neil. I'm not gonna say I want to be like him anymore, but I mean, there's a lot of good things about Neil. But Neil and Allie's dad got me into wrestling when I was 6 years old. So definitely got beat up. I remember being in tennis shoes wrestling and not even having the right gear and everything, and just growing up in the sport. Yeah, ultimately, like I said, 6 years old. It wasn't overnight. You know, like got beat up a lot, and then.
So what is it? And this is where I get a lot of this in the military. They're like, and I've talked about this a lot. Like, people want to know, like, how did you do it? What are the tips? How did you train? What did you eat? What's the hack to being the national champ? Like, how do you? Yeah, what's the shortcut?
So definitely no hack, no shortcut. It's consistency in anything that you do. It's consistency. You got to continue to do things the right way over a long period of time, and ultimately you get a national champion. And I'm sure it's the same thing in the military world. So it's putting the work in, putting the time in, and over time, day after day, over time.
So what did you do? What was your routine like over those 10+ years?
Well, I really think like this, and the older I get, the more I realize you got to simplify your life. So it's you think of this, you want to be a national champ, that's a long ways down the road, so it's like that you can get overwhelmed by looking at that. And reality, it's day by day by day. So it's sometimes you get off track, you eat the wrong foods, you miss a practice or something like that, but it's getting back on the horse and then making another good decision when you're faced with this meal, or when you're faced with, do I do the extra sprint? Do I do the extra push-up at practice? And like I said, you don't always do it, but then, hopefully you get those convictions, and then the next day you go back and do it, and over a long period of time, you become, you can be a national champ.
Do you feel like those little things made the difference?
100%.
Like the one extra sprint, and then like doing things that you didn't feel like doing.
Yeah, and when you force yourself to do those things, eventually you kind of want those things, and when you don't do them, you feel out of place. It feels weird. It feels awkward. So you ultimately, then you start thinking, you leave and you didn't do the extra sprint. You're like, man, tomorrow I'm going to do it, because I felt a lot better after doing the right thing yesterday. So I think it's that. And as you get older, this is huge. They say, so wrestling is, they say it's so much mental. It's like, well, why do we only focus on we basically only focus on the physical part? It's like, when you realize there's a big mental component to this, you start taking those things more seriously. It's surrounding yourself with people that are speaking the right things, saying the right things, believing in you, and then it helps you start believing in yourself. So it's that, reading the right things, watching the right things, watching people who have been there, done that, and emulating those things. You can't just get there by just only doing the physical. You got to mentally prepare yourself as well.
I think it was Allie that told me something about the mental thing of you, and you can correct me if I'm saying this wrong, but did you actually like picture yourself winning that title?
Yeah, so multiple times. I mean, it was all the time. It was saying it though. So here's a quick little story. So in 2000, I think it was 2009, my junior year of college, I remember being in study hall. I had to be in study hall all the time in college, and I'm there till 9, meeting with tutors, mentor, all these things, basically so that I could wrestle and win a national title. I had to do the school part. So I'm in there, it's late at night, and I get an email from my mom, and the email had a scanned note that I wrote when I think I was in fourth grade, or it might have even been before that, because the writing was bad. There might have been a misspelled word or two, but it was national champion, Olympic gold medalist, NFL All-Pro. These are the things that were written on this note that my mom's
from the 4th grade.
From the 4th grade. And so you get I'm sitting there in study hall and I get this email and I look at it, I'm like, it's like, wow, I was saying these things, I was seeing these things, picturing myself doing these things when I was in 4th grade. So it's like I didn't win a national title in 4th grade, obviously.
Right.
It was 2000. It was when I was 20-something years old.
Right.
So it's those things were said and pictured and thought about way beforehand.
Yeah, and I don't think people give enough credit to like the power of speaking things and then mentally. I mean, you hear that about Olympic athletes, right?
All the time.
They're like, I picture myself on the podium receiving my gold medal.
Yep.
Like people, I don't think we give that enough credit to, like they almost like self-doubt.
Right.
If you can't picture yourself, and that goes with anything, starting a business, in sports, getting a gold medal, winning a national championship, having $1 million in the bank. If you can't mentally picture that, if you can't put that out there and then see yourself in that place, you're never going to be in that place.
It's good. Well, it's just like what you said a second ago. What's the shortcut? What's the hack? It's like we live in a world, and listen, I'm guilty sometimes too, but it's like you want a quick fix, you want the result right now, right away. You want the answers. And when it doesn't happen, you're kind of like, okay, on to the next thing. And then it doesn't happen, on to the next thing. It's like what you're saying and what I've found to be true is it's consistency over a long period of time. So it's like you say these things early on, but it's like people give up on them when they don't get the result the next year. It's like, well, I'm not a national champ when I was in 5th or 6th grade, so it's like, oh, I don't want to wrestle. I'll go play another sport. I'll go do something else. But it's like when you do those things and you consistently say those, believe those, surround yourself with people that are saying those, believing those things with you. Like I said, then it's the national title in 2009, many years after. But it was a long time of speaking, picturing, saying, writing down, water bottles in class, said national champ, notebooks when I was supposed to be taking notes, national champ, all over. It's like, and you look back at all these things, it's like, holy, like that's what I was talking about my whole life.
And and people are going to, the outside people, the people that are not in your circle are going to be like, are going to talk smack.
Yeah.
They're going to be haters and they're going to be naysayers. And so how did you deal with that?
Man, it's tough sometimes because not only do your words have power and people, but people's words can build or destroy you as well. So number one, I try to surround myself with people that actually thought I could do it. Yeah. I don't want to be around a bunch
that believed in you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A bunch of people who said I sucked. I mean, that makes no sense at all. And, so it's surrounding myself. Basically, I think that's the biggest thing. It's, I'm a big believer in, and a ton of people have said it, but Jim Rohn, I think, but you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. I've just seen it to be true so many times in my life, and I can look back and be like, well, it was Ben, it was Michael, it was these are the people that are around me, and there's all these people in a similar mission, and then the result was kind of what they're doing, and I still see that now. It's like the people I hang out with, and it is crazy. My best friend almost makes the exact same amount of money as me. His family, his priorities are almost the exact same. He's got the same number of kids. I mean, it's crazy when you look at the people that you surround yourself with. You go on a similar path as them, and it just kind of happens because that's constantly what you guys are talking about, doing together.
Yeah.
And so
you are who you surround yourself
100%.
with. Yeah. So okay, so you did that, but it hasn't always been successes. Like you've had some failures as well.
Yeah.
How does one deal with that kind of failure in that kind of at that level of professionalism?
And that's a tough question, and it's obviously, and I know you say it, not quitting, not surrendering. It's really not giving up, and it's a lot easier said than done. But again, there comes in who's around you. There's multiple times when I was like, I'm done. There's no way I can be a national champ. I lost to my own teammate the same year I won a national title. So you have a wrestle off in wrestling. So
right.
We got one of the top kids in the whole entire country that came to Missouri. And so everybody's like, oh, it's over. You're not, you got the best kid in the whole country at all weights coming to the University of Missouri. It's over. You're not. Mark Ellis' days are over as a. And that actually, when he came, that's when everything got elevated. And it was, I lost to him in my own wrestle off. So if that guy goes and wrestles I'm not even on my team, And so it's, again, I was surrounded by somebody else in a similar situation that's like, we're not giving up. We're going to keep pressing, you know, go to the next tournament. It's, you know, there's hours. There was not an hour that I wasn't in that weight room. I was a smaller heavyweight. So to get bigger, I mean, I tell people this, 10 p.m., 11 p.m., 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 a.m., all the way up. There's not an hour on a clock that I was not in the weight room or the wrestling room in those 5 years at the University of Missouri. Not 1 hour. I've seen every hour in that weight room at some point or another. And that's kind of crazy.
Because that's when you had to fit it in.
That's when I fit it in.
Yeah.
I mean, I would, you know, I would, if you pulled the door just right, you could break into the Hearn Center. It's, you know, and it's like, so we knew, me and my buddy, we knew how to get in there, and we would break into there, and we would, while he was cutting weight, I'd go in and lit. I got to get bigger. I got to get bigger. I got to get bigger. And then I would sit in the room and picture myself. And now there's a painting on the wall, national champ. It's me up there, you know. And I actually have the painting. The guy painted too. I have one at my house. But it's I picture myself on that wall, painted on that wall, way before it happened at 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m.
That's the difference. You were breaking into the weight room to get greatness by saying, "Oh, the doors are shut. Oh, well, I'll go home and try again later."
Right. That was exactly. No, it's like that was like I wanted to. Maybe want to get in there more because they're trying to lock me out, you know. And it's like a lot of people, oh, the door's jammed, I can't go. Rather than the door's locked and I'm going to break in, you know.
So what did you do, or who did what when you lost to your teammate that year? That had to have been like.
Barely anybody talked to me. My coaches, everybody, they just like, hey, you're going to go to these tournaments with the backups, and you know, just keep going. This is just the beginning. You know, and then over time, how I got back in the lineup was we went to the same tournaments and we both wrestled, and I would always, you know, I'd win all these tournaments and he was placing lower, and eventually they're like, you know, because what happens is when you have a teammate, you wrestle each other and you learn each other's moves, so that you can almost like game plan for that one person because you're training with them at 365 days a year. So to actually go and wrestle people that aren't training with me, you know, they could. You know, they were able to see that I was going to win a national title, and they're like, all right, yeah, you're the guy. You know, here's another adversity. So I get my spot back. They're like, okay, you're the guy. I win the Midlands Championships, which is a huge tournament in Chicago. I win that. They're like, the spot's yours. And then my knee goes out. So I get my spot back.
The same year.
The same year. So I lose my wrestle off. I'm not the starter. At least I think I'm not the starter. Then I get my fight back, get my spot back. Like, man, thank you God. Like I got my spot back. And then my knee goes out, and I'm thinking, I'm gonna have to wrestle on this bum knee because if I go get surgery, they're gonna give this. He's gonna take the spot back.
Right.
You know, we got 2 guys in the top 5 in the country on the same team, and so, anyways, again, it was, you know, I can't say all this without saying, you know, it's really trusting God, believing that that God had a plan for my life, and regardless of the outcome, I was gonna be a good teammate. I was gonna be a good example, a good ambassador for Jesus, and I was still gonna do those things. And then the result. So ultimately, I can say I did all these things, but ultimately I was surrounded by an awesome group of people, and you know, God had a plan for my life, and now it's given me a platform to do what I'm doing now. And so, but I have surgery on my knee, and I think I lose my spot again. This guy he wrestles against Nebraska, he wrestles against Oklahoma, and he wins all these matches. So he's back in the top 5, ranked in the country. So I gotta seriously come back and get my spot back for the second time in the same year. Which is just, it's crazy to think about. And, you know, I had to be laser focused on national championship.
But you were putting the work in.
Yep, every day. Yeah. I mean, rehab, they still say it's the fastest knee rehab, you know, they've ever done it. You know, the doctor's ever done there. It was because I wanted to hurry up and get back to get my spot back because I don't want to lose it.
And that's something that I've said in the past. You mentioned it, like you weren't looking at the national, like even though you were visualizing it, but that wasn't your daily focus. Your daily focus was what was right in front of you, the match right in front of you, the training session right in front of you. And people get so wrapped around, like they're looking at the mountain that they have to climb, and they're missing the steps that they have to take to get there. Yeah. Instead of just focusing on the one step in front of you so you can get up there. Because before you'll know it, you'll be there.
Yep.
But if you're not focusing on those little minuscule tasks of what you're putting in your mouth, missing training sessions, those sort of things, that's how you get there. Yeah.
Yeah, no, 100%. It's true.
So what would you say, you know, you're talking about somebody that's, I don't know, in their teenage years, young teens, and they know you, or they're looking at so and so, whoever the greatest is now, whoever's out there that's you know, setting records now. What would you tell those kids?
Who's your circle? You know, I think that's one of the top things you can do. I mean, you were just saying there's so many of these things that you look at this mountain, I want to be a national champion. So right now, today, who are you surrounding yourself with?
Audit your circle.
That's good. Audit your circle. And then you might, the tough thing might be you might have to kick some people out who you've been close to for a long time, but you got to kick them out and you got to put somebody else back in. So it's who's on that similar mission, who has those similar goals, you know, because that will derail you the quickest. So I'd say I'll just leave it at that. That's one of the biggest steps you can take right now. Because that's one thing you could do today. It's the extra little workout. It's waking up an hour earlier to start dwelling and reading on the right things. It's waking up 30 minutes earlier and putting your shoes on and taking off, you know, 15 minutes out, 15 minutes back. Those are little things you can do daily that are game changers.
So what are you doing now?
So now I'm actually with FCA Wrestling, which is Fellowship of Christian Athletes Wrestling. So it's basically, you know, super grateful for what Jesus has done in my life, done for me. Super grateful for what the sport of wrestling has taught me. You basically throw those things together, and then I got FCA Wrestling, and so it's just building up, serving coaches and athletes, wrestling coaches and athletes, really in the Midwest region. So I'm the Midwest director for FCA Wrestling, but really throughout the world. I mean, Ukraine, Azerbaijan, just different places that that we're trying to grow as well.
You became national champ, and then you had lots of opportunities to do a lot of different things over the years. What led you to the FCA back in Missouri with your family? Like, what was that road, and why are you doing what you're doing now?
Yeah, I just think so what drove me to FCA Wrestling was this. I was coaching. I coached college wrestling for about 5 years, and just man, I know the struggle of being a coach. I know the time, the commitments, the traveling, competing, and then right when that's over, you're back on the road recruiting, and I just know the influence of a coach. You know, I still reach out to coaches that I had growing up, wrestling coaches, football coaches, and just they had a huge impact on my life. And so, you know, ultimately, I think the coach is really the most influential person in our youth today, outside the home. And so when I knew that FCA Wrestling was trying to go to the coach and get the coach, you know, and then in that way, once you get the coach, you're going to get way more athletes. And that just clicked to me. You know, I've had a lot of good coaches and a lot of bad coaches. And I just thought, man, if we can help and reach them, I just thought it was spot on with this ministry as far as, you know, and then the pinpoint specific to what the coach cares about. You know, the wrestling component is wrestling coaches, they care about wrestling. They're trying to win in wrestling. So it's like if you can be, rather than having, you know, a tennis player come and try to like reach out to a wrestling coach, it's sometimes the language isn't the same. And so
yeah.
It was like, hey, I can use the things I've done in wrestling, and then I can also minister, encourage, and serve wrestling coaches. It was spot on for me.
So it's like basically what I'm hearing is it's a measure of impact. You felt like you could have more of an impact doing this with more people than
right.
what you were doing in one team.
Yeah, because exactly. So I think it was a bigger picture thing, and it was, you know, I think coaches oftentimes think that things can only be done one way, when really, you know, family is really important to me. I wanted to make sure that I leave a legacy for my kids. You know, I want to be the best. I prayed it before I got married, and I pray it now every night. I want to be the best husband, the best father in the world. And so whatever that looks like, you know, it's hard to compare, but I want to be the very best. And so it's like, when I think if I take care of that right, and I'm an example of that, I think that will be contagious to coaches. You know, and I think somebody's got to stand up and be that person in our culture and in our community. So it's like if Mark Ellis was a national champion, but man, that guy loves his kids. Man, that guy loves his wife. Man, that guy is just a servant, like to coaches, to people. And it's like, man, he's just a normal dude who just loves people. I just think that you know, I think that will kind of catch.
I've talked a lot about that on here before. Is there's so much darkness and negativity in the world, but I promise you, positivity wins every single time.
Every time, man.
Every single time.
Yeah.
And yeah, you're doing it. And the way that you just said it, as far as like being a family man and being a husband, being a father, being a coach, being an ambassador for the sport.
Yeah.
Positivity wins overall. And then sometimes we get, even I imagine a coach too will get lost in the job
100%.
and they lose the fact that positivity will win out every single time.
Yep. And I'm guilty as well. So I'm not saying that I have all the answers, but
we all
I've
are.
even watched your
Yeah.
stuff, and it's the idea, it's the positivity, and it's doing things right. So many people I think get caught up in trying to have success in other realms. It's and even ministry, you see people all the time. It's like, well, all these people are hurting. I gotta help all these people. I gotta do all this stuff. It's like, well, hey, like if you don't help yourself first, if you don't take care of your, like if your wife hates you, then what does having success in the business world? What does that even matter? Because when you go home, she hates you. You know, if your kids don't want to be around you, they can't stand you, then what does it matter that you're winning national titles as a coach? It's like, so
you're alone with your title.
Exactly. So that's congratulations, and I hope you sleep well. But it's like, you got to take care of, you know, 1 before you can go to 2. Take care of 1, 2 before you go to 3. And it's like, I think it's a progression thing, and that's really what I've been convicted of, and why I love FCA wrestling. And
you do basically, like on your Instagram, you're giving out messages, and I don't want to call them tips and tricks, but like you're giving advice, and you're trying to develop a culture in the younger generation that's coming up behind you, right?
Yes.
There, and then also on your own YouTube channel, which I'll link all this stuff below as well, so you can find me.